when it says, and we know that all things work to the good of those who love the Lord, who are called according to his will and his purpose. I had to live it. I had to live Jeremiah 29:11 when it says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. Inky, I need you to trust me. I'm like, Lord, I need you to trust me. And I get in the fourth quarter of a game, a little bit under 2 minutes left, and I make a tackle that I could literally make with my eyes closed, and 2 hours later I'm in the emergency room and I'm fighting for my life. And I wake up the next day, my career's over, almost lost my life, got a paralyzed right arm and hand, and my life has completely changed. And somehow, when Coach Foreman walked into the room and said, Inky, how are you doing? I said, Coach, I'm blessed. I'm good. I'm still alive. My career's ended, but Coach, I'm blessed. And so when I went back to the moment that I fell in love with the game of football, because I had to backtrack it to understand it, right? And when I went back to the moment that I fell in love with it, my situation and my circumstance made me fall in love with it, right? To the point to where I didn't start playing football on grass. I started playing football on concrete, right? I was playing in the street, pure passion, not too much wisdom. Right? Scarred up, bloody, getting at. I just loved it, right? Like I always ask people, what happened to the passion? Like what happened to the love? What happened to the dedication and determination and level of commitment that when a person said, I want to do it, and they first start, right? It's not built upon politics. It's not built upon validation. It's built solely upon, I love this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to give everything I got to it, right? And a guy said to me a few days ago, I was with the Chiefs, and a guy said to me, well, Inky, I don't like the way the coach is talking to me. I'm like, how old are you again? I'm like, you're like 25, right? He was like, yeah, but I can't take how the coach is talking to me, so I want to quit. I said, whatever you do, please don't quit. He was like, why? He's disrespecting me. I said, because if you quit, the danger of quitting is it has the possibility to become a habit, and then before long, you'll look up and you'll quit on your wife, you'll quit on your relationship with God, you'll quit on anything that brings a level of discomfort, and it doesn't give you the validation you want because you're not getting it and because you're not cut like that. I said, so whatever you do, don't quit. I said, but most importantly, when you first started doing it, what was it based upon? I said, or was the passion counterfeit, or was it a real level of commitment? I'm talking about concrete commitment. I'm talking about the commitment that says, I am going to stay true to what I said I would do long after the mood that I've set it in has left. Because I think we all know in this room, character is not something that we inherit. Character is something we got to wake up every single day. We got to fight and we got to build it. In the midst of opposition, adversity, and challenges, like I told the guys I played with, I don't care how tall your daddy was, you got to do your own growing. In the midst of challenges, opposition, and pain. But when you think about what true courage is the ability to accept pain and start things without any guarantee of success, but also understanding that the ability to learn is a gift even when pain is your teacher. And so for me, the game of football was pretty much like this stage. It was a platform that God had provided to cultivate a certain level of talent and excellence if I did it the right way. So one day when it stopped, it was certain things I could extract from it and apply and plug into other areas and aspects of my life, and so I could be successful no matter what I wanted to do. And so one night a blue pickup truck pulled up, and I'll never forget it, man. He changed my life. Out of the truck got the first white guy we'd ever saw in our neighborhood. Every drug dealer took off running. They thought he was the police. God, nicest guy in the world, man. And he walks over between our game and he said, man, would y'all like to play football on grass? I said, man, I would love that, man. Where you been, brother? The street getting rough. He said, go in the house, get your parents, let me talk to them. I ran in the house, my Uncle JJ was present. I said, hey, Uncle, will you please come and speak to this gentleman? Uncle said, sure. Uncle walked outside, guy extended his hand. He said, hey, man, my name is Trey Hurst. He said, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even supposed to be over here. He said, I brought a kid home after practice, a couple blocks up. He said, I see these little knuckleheads playing tackle football in the street. He said, I run a program across town. I think if you bring the boys out, it was me and my 3 younger cousins. He He said, I think it'd be a great opportunity for him, it can impact their life. He didn't say anything about football. He said, I think it can impact their life. I think it can help them. My uncle responded, he said, sir, we greatly appreciate it. He said, but I hate to inform you, we just don't have the money for anything like that. He pointed at me, he said, Inky's mother, she's a single mother, working a double shift at Wendy's, she don't have it. He said, the other three, their fathers are in and out of the system, they don't have it. The coach, without any hesitation, says, I tell you what, you bring him to the park tomorrow, I'll sign him up, I'll pay for it with my own money. I tapped my cousin's leg. I said, man, he hasn't even seen my spin move yet, man. I said, what type of guy is this? And he hadn't even seen us play, right? He hadn't seen us do nothing. And so the next day when my uncle brought us to the park, I'm standing in line beside him because I wanted to understand his thought process. Not so much of the action, I was extremely grateful for the action, but I wanted to understand what made him stop and do this for me and my three younger cousins when he didn't have to. And when I got to the park, I soon understood it wasn't just something he did for me and my three younger cousins, he did it for kids all across Atlanta. He was already successful in construction. He had his own business. He didn't have to be a Little League coach, let alone he didn't have to stop on the east side of Atlanta for Inky and his scrawny little three little cousins. Anytime he said, Inky, you need to do this in school, you need to sit in the front of the class, Inky, you need to show respect, Inky, when you're in your neighborhood, you need to treat people like this. Through the vehicle of football, he taught me how to live life. But it wasn't until I understood it, until one night when he had to take me home, when my mother couldn't make it off her shift, and when my mother would come to the park, I would be there late, 9 o'clock at night, right? Mother be in a car with her car lights on, I'm doing backpedaling drills. Right? Asking my mother, can she sit in her car so I can make it to the NFL? She's sitting there and I know she's tired. And she called coach and said, I can't make it off of my shift. Can you take Inky home? He said, sure, no problem. We pull up to my house, 125 Warren. I get out of the truck, I said, coach, all right. He said, all right, Inky, I'll see you tomorrow in practice. I said, can I ask you one question? He said, sure, what you got, buddy? I said, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. He opened his door, got out of his truck, walked around, stood directly in front of me. He said, son, I love you. First man ever tell me he loved me. He said, Ink, you can't disrespect me. What you got? I said, why do you live life the way that you live it? He said, I'm going to share something with you, Ink, and I don't want you to ever forget it. And in its simplicity, it was yet profound. And all he said to me was, as long as you can live your life and make sure that somebody else's life is okay, he said, son, your life will always be okay. And he got in his truck and he left. And the way I processed it was, man, if I can annihilate my ego and my pride. But the formula of what he said, the formula of, Inky, as long as you can make sure that somebody else's life is okay, your life will always be okay. The formula of what he said, I took it and applied it to everything that I touched and everything that I did. Every sport that I play, I was a 4-sport athlete coming up. I ran track, I played baseball, I played basketball, and I played football. If you can make sure that somebody else's life is okay, Inky, your life will always be okay. And so my level of what a teammate was, it had a totally different meaning to me. Like with my family, I always tell people, when I was on a team, I didn't play with my teammates, I played for my teammates. Like I don't live with my family, I live for my family. Like the meaning is different. Like the play that I got injured, people don't even notice. They just look at the play and they see it and they're like, oh man, Inky got hurt. They don't know, that wasn't even my guy. I had my guy. My teammate busted. 2 of them. That if they would have had their assignment, who knows what would have happened. But if that play unfolded today, I'll go at that play the exact same way because I looked at my teammates in the tunnel and I told them I got your back. I didn't conditionalize it. And so when I got my scholarship to go to Tennessee, I'm like, man, it's Mayberry. I'm like, y'all get 5 meals a day? You either got a smoothie machine, you got a barber chair, like you got training table, you get gear, like you get all this stuff. Most importantly, you get a process that if you follow the process, you get a shot. Not a shot at the NFL, you get a shot at the great equalizer in life, your education. I said, all I gotta do is have the character to do what I say I'm gonna do and show up at the time I say I'm gonna show up, and I get a shot to do what I always wanted to do. And when I got there, the thing that was the hardest for me was, you saw people that took it for granted. The hardest thing after my injury, it wasn't that I would show up and I'm like, man, I can't play anymore. That wasn't the hardest thing for me. The hardest thing was when I would have to stand on the sideline and watch a game and watch a practice, and you would see guys that took it for granted and treated it like it was nothing. You would see people show up and they just didn't appreciate what they had, and you had guys that gave everything they had to it, and for some strange reason something happened and they couldn't do it anymore. The saddest thing in the world, when you see somebody with potential and a skill set out of this world, and people are pouring into them and telling them how great they can become, and they just don't appreciate it, and they become a zombie, and they end up being a person that show up and they count the hours and they don't make the hours count. And so they asked me one question, Ink, what's your plan? I said, my plan is simple. I want to graduate in 3 years and go to the NFL so I can help my family. They said, well, Inky, you didn't just knock it out in your test scores. I said, yeah, I'm not a good test taker, but I really need to help my family. And I end up starting my sophomore year. Junior year, I come out, I'm playing. I play as a freshman, special teams, got in a couple of games as a dime, nickel, come into my sophomore season, have a great sophomore season. Junior season, starting, everything is going great. Come out strong against California Bears, nominated SEC Defensive Player of the Week, first week, second game playing against Air Force. And we're thinking, man, we're just gonna come out, roll over Air Force, game will be over, get ready for Florida the next week. Air Force come out and they're running the triple option. And if you meet a team that runs the triple option very well, and you're in the SEC where you don't face the triple option every week, it can become a problem if you find somebody that run it right. And Air Force ran it right. And I knew it was a problem when me and the guys would get in the huddle on defense, and we would look at each other and say, man, who had the ball? You know what I'm saying? You're like, who had the ball, man? And guys like, oh no, line up, right? And we just line up, right? And we get to the fourth quarter of this game, and at this point, it's heavy frustration because we've got popped in the mouth by Air Force. And so we're in the huddle, and we're breaking the huddle, and I tell the guys, I say, man, if it comes my way, let me get it. Let me get him. I'm gonna end the game. Let me get him. And that's, as the players unfold, I got quarters coverage. And so I'm backpedaling to my quarter, and I can see the play unfold. I can see it clear, like it's in HD. And I see the quarterback rolling, and he's dropping back, and before I take off to go make the tackle, I say, thank you, God. I got exactly what I asked for. Before I go to make the play, thank you, God, I got exactly what I asked for. And I take off running, full head of steam. I ran a 4.38 in the 40. I don't know what the guy ran, but he was coming too. And I'm trying to separate him from the ball. And as soon as I hit him, something happened that never happened to me before in my life. As soon as I hit him, it seemed as if every breath in my body left. My body went completely limp. I lost control. I fell to the ground. I blacked out. It had never happened to me before. When my eyes opened, my teammates ran over to me. They said, Ink, get up. Let's rock. Let's go. Let's close them out. I said, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? You always get up, man. You're our guy. I said, I know, but I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? I said, I can't move. I said, there's a shock going from the crown of my head to the bottom of my feet. I can't feel anything. The shock eventually left, but it stayed in my right arm and hand. They brought the spine board out. They put me on the spine board. They're wheeling me off the field. We get to the ambulance, and my father is standing there. And I say to my father, I said, Pops, I got him, right? I put it on him, right? He said, yep, Ink, but I think you got the worst part of this one. They rolled me up in the ambulance. They said, Ink, we'll take you over, run a couple tests. It's football. Things happen. You'll be fine, man. They take me over. They run their tests. They bring me back into a room. My mother comes in, kisses me, says a prayer, cracks a joke, says, Ink, you'll be fine. Football, things happen. And she's going to walk out, and I'm watching my mother walk out, but as she's exiting the room, I can hear footsteps from the opposite side. And when I turn to look, it's the head doctor, and he's running at this point, and he's screaming. And I'll never forget, he says, guys, get in here. Got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, you can't use another word? I'm like, use a synonym, brother, like die? I'm thinking he's trying to shock me. I'm like die. He's like, yeah, die. I'm like, what happened? He said, you ruptured your subclavian artery in your chest. You're bleeding internally. He said, we got to rush you back, take the main vein out of your left leg, plug it into your chest in order to save your life. He said, oh, I guarantee you, you won't be here in the morning. first. Let's go. The next morning I woke up. It's top 3 most embarrassing moments in my life. People were coming over to my bed saying, Ink, man, you deserve it, man. You're a good guy, man. You deserve the NFL. You work hard. You never cheated the game. You did things the right way. You deserve it, man. This shouldn't have happened to you. And I'm sitting there, and I don't know if you've ever been through something that the situation holds so much conviction that it makes you self-assess and question your principles and your values about life. I went into surgery for an artery. I came out of surgery, got cut 6 times down my left thigh, 1 time across the left side of my neck, 1 time across the right side of my neck, twice through my right ribs, cut out my right pec, bottom of my armpit to the bottom of my hand, 350 staples in my body, bandaged me from my neck to my knees. This ain't lip service. I'm like, what happened? They like, yeah, when we went to do the artery, we noticed you had torn the nerves in your brachial plexus. I'm like, what's that? Nerve roots that go from your spine, they control your shoulder, your arm, and your hand. They go into your spine like a plug. You rip them out, they can't be replugged. They were telling me in that moment, pretty much, Ink, it's a soft landing, but your career is pretty much over. And I was so embarrassed because I felt like I had shortchanged God. I'm like, man, with all the gifts, talents, and abilities that God had blessed you with, the only thing you were focused on was the NFL? That's low-hanging fruit. I'm like, Ink, was that it? Like, and my father is sitting there, and everybody is analyzing the situation, trying to see how I'm going to respond, and my father's on fire. And the first thing my father says to me is, Ink, how does this God that you love so much let this happen to you? How does it God, Ink, you go to FCA for, let this happen to you? How does it God you go to church for, let this happen to you? How does this God you pray to, son, let this happen to you? I see when you make a play and you say, glory to God. Well, if God is so good, Ink, how could this God let this happen to you? And I'm like, oh man, God gonna spank him. I'm like, God gonna spank him. But his frustration was real. Because through his lenses, all he can see is, my son is hurt. All he can see is the 2 people that I've loved the most my whole life was my mother and my son, and I lost my mother at 14 to cancer. And so when your mother had you, I was running because I was scared and I didn't have anybody. And now when I get back in my son's life and we got a decent relationship, now my son is crazy about God and his career ends and he almost loses his life. Man, what's up with this God? And I'm sitting there like, God, what's up? And God like, no, I got you. I'm like, man, you got a funny way of showing it. And they're like, Inky, you're gonna be in the hospital the next 40 to 60 days. I'm like, can you order me a Dunjoy sling? They're like, why? I'm like, I need to go back to practice with my teammates. They're like, Inky, you need to take a break. Something traumatic has happened to you. I'm like, no, I made a vow to my teammates. I'm like, I gotta go back to class. I gotta graduate. They saved my life Saturday night. I was back in class Monday. You know the crazy thing about life? You got some cats, they get an ACL, they act like they can't go to nothing. They can't come to school, they can't eat. It's crazy to me. Like Eric Berry wears number 29 in the NFL in honor of me, and he doesn't wear that because of what I did as a player. He wears that because when I got injured and I got back to practice that next Wednesday after they saved my life, and we were in the sand pit, and I looked at him in the sand pit, and I said, you better not let me beat you. And no drill. And I had a Dunjoy sling, and I had a Velcro strap, 2 of them, strapped to my body, and it had my arm like this so I could run sprints and so I could be in the sand pit with my teammate. Like, team means something totally different to me. Like, my teammates showed up at my house when I got injured, and they were in my closet because I had to learn how to tie my shoe, and they were in my closet before I learned, and they were making sure all of my shoes were tied. It means something different to me. Like, my teammates showed up at my house, and they were like, Ink, you need us to take you to church? We got you, man, whatever you need. Like, teammates mean something totally different to me. They showed up, Inky, you need to go to FCA. I know you bandaged up. We got you. What you need? It means something totally different to me. And I didn't tell my teammates when I signed on at Tennessee that, yeah, man, I'm going to be a great teammate unless I get injured. No, I'm going to be a great teammate. In spite of an injury, I'm going to still show up and I'm going to still go to meetings. In spite of, if I almost lose my life, the funny thing about it is, at the end of the day, you got to take my life before you take my drive. Because I'm not working for accolades. I'm not working for statistics. I wasn't playing for that. In Colossians 3:23, it says, do all things as if you're doing it for the glory of God. And if I'm doing something for the glory of God, at a certain point, when the opposition, the adversity, and the challenges hit, I'll rejoice because I know it's God trying to take me to the next level. And so the discomfort for me is great. Like at a certain point, the comfort zone, young people have to understand, the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. You can be comfortable all you want, but you can equate comfort to being stagnant. If a person ever wants to grow, it's heavy sacrifice involved and it's heavy discomfort involved. And so as I'm sitting here and I'm going to practice, my father said something to me and it shook me to my core. My father came to me and said, Ink, you know what? I'm gonna come and stay with you for the next 30 days. I had never been under the same roof as my father. I'm talking about staying for consecutive days. That never happened. He said, I'm gonna come, I'm gonna take you to class, I'm gonna take you to church, I'm gonna take you to rehab for your arm, I'm gonna do everything with you. I'm like, okay. And so my father would take me to FCA discipleship, and he would be there, and he would stand literally outside of the door, and he would hear me and the chaplain going back and forth, and he would just stand there. When the session would end, he would say, Ink, you good? I would say, yes, sir. He would take me. He would show up in the training room, he would lay on the table, he would say, can I get a heat pack? They would put one heat pack on, and then he would say, can I get another one? They would say, you sure it's kind of hot? He would say, yeah, I need it. They would put another one on, literally until one day, they put so many heat packs on his back, they pulled him up and his back was completely raw. He was carrying a burden that wasn't his to carry in the first place. He didn't know who to give it to. Right? Like, because it was like Wi-Fi. He had no connection. And so he's carrying burdens that wasn't meant for him to carry, and it's weighing him down. And every single day, I prayed at the same time. And my roommates at that time was Ramon Foster, who plays and starts at guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, number 73. It was Gerard Mayo, went first round, 10 pick to the New England Patriots. It was Robert Ayers, went first round, 18 pick to the Denver Broncos. And every single night, me and Ramon's room was beside each other. And so when I would get on my knees to pray, my father would always come by my room and he would say, Ink, you need anything? I would say, no, sir, I'm good. He would say, hey, big boy, to Ramon. Ramon's 6'7", 380 pounds. Say, big boy. Ramon would say, yes, sir. You say, you good? He said, yeah, Pops, I'm good. And on the 29th day, I find it odd, my number's 29. My favorite Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11. On the 29th day, I'm on my knees to pray, and my father comes by my room. He says, hey, Ink, you need anything? I said, no, sir, I'm good. I see my father step off. He said, hey, big boy. Ramon said, I'm good, Pops. He steps back into my room, and he says, Ink, man, I want to talk to you about something. I'm still on my knees. I said, yes, sir. He said, you know that God you pray to? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know that God I take you to discipleship about? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know that God take you to FCA, church, all of that? I said, yes, sir. He said, if that God can help you handle this situation the way you handling it, he said, son, I want to give my life to Christ. I said, praise God, let's do it. My father went and gave his life to Christ. My father was headed down a path of destruction. And so young people, I'm gonna tell you something. Whenever you look at a situation, don't just look at the situation for what it is. Look at the collateral damage that's attached to it. My father was headed down a path of destruction. He had 3 daughters. When my father got saved and got his salvation, my father's household was corrected. My 3 teammates and roommates and best friends that were in my household, all of them gave their life to Christ. And so when I look at this situation and people call the $1 million question, Inky, why wouldn't you change what happened to you? I'm like, you serious? I'm like, let me tell you why I wouldn't change it. If I had to put on a scale the NFL, my father's salvation, my 3 best friends' salvation, if I had to weigh it on a scale and they said, Inky, pick, what would you choose? 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to pick my friend's salvation and my father's salvation. Because I know, I'm wise enough to understand this is the real contract. And it's long and it's rich. It's more fulfilling, it's sweeter. It might involve a little pain and a little pruning that you don't understand, but when you come through it, you'll be a better person because of it. I just want one thing from you. Like through the